We have regrets from Sean Xavier. And if we could all, first of all, welcome everybody. Very special welcome to those that are online that have, or here, that have never been part of our committee meeting or our Jeff from Peel family. A very special welcome to those of you that are here for the very first time. You could join me in the opening prayer in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Almighty God, our Father in heaven, from whom all goodness and truth on earth have come forth, grant to us, the Catholic community gathered at this meeting, the vision to recognize and the vigor to espouse sound principles of educational theory and practice in a spirit of balanced judgment. And with the proper perspective, give us also the courage to turn it all onto the path of higher goodness in our deliberations, administrative decisions, and courses of action. Amen. Father and Son and the Holy Spirit. Trustee Stefano Pascucci, if you could acknowledgements, please.
Thank you. Acknowledgement. In the deep of winter, we acknowledge the land. Regardless of all around us, the cold, the dark, the land is always there. Stable, supportive, providing for our needs. And yet it is ever a silent witness to all we do. Positive and beautiful and the unjust, now and in past times. We commit collectively and personally to do better in the spirit of our foundational treaty, Dish with One Spoon Wampum, which asks us to share the land evenly. As always, we are thankful to our local treaty partners, Mississauga and Anishinaabe, for showing us the way.
Approval of the agenda, the calendar items. We need an approver for the agenda as a whole? No, just
through the chair, you do need approval for the agenda.
Approval. By Trustee Stefano Pascucci. Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Daniel?
Thank you. And through the chair, or continuing through the chair, item 4A is the construction progress report. So if there are any questions on the report, Superintendent Thomas is here to address those questions.
Any questions? Seeing none, hearing none. Next order of business.
Through the chair, we move on to A5, which is a declaration of interest.
No declarations of interest.
We move on to A6, which is the approval of the minutes of the Administration and Finance Committee meeting of November 7th, 2023.
Any questions on the minutes? None?
Through the chair, we're looking for approval of those minutes.
Approved. Move approval by Thomas. Any questions? Any opposed? One favor?
Through the chair, we move on to item B, which is the proposed terms of reference for the Administration and Finance Committee. And you will find that on page 11 of your agenda. It is identical to the terms of reference from last year. It's been updated to include the chair and the vice chair. And as always, there is a provision within that terms of reference that any matter pertaining to corporate services or any other matter pertaining to the Board of Trustees can be addressed at the Administration and Finance Committee. I'm happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, we're looking for approval of the terms of reference.
Questions? Seeing none, hearing none. Move approval by Mario Pascucci. All in favor? All in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Thank you. And through the chair, continuing on, we have no awards or presentations, but we do have a delegation this evening. And I invite to the podium Allison Canning and Ishrat Aisha. I apologize if I did not pronounce that properly, who will be presenting on tech collection of students, the e-waste program. As it is a delegation, so through the chair, oh, sorry. Just before we get started, the chair has a bit of a pre-delegation item he wants to address, and then we can start the delegation. So
Board of Trustees or committee, we welcome you and thank you for your delegation to tonight's meeting. I will review a few points related to the rules and process related to delegations. You will have 5 minutes to make your presentation. This will be timed. You will signal you when there is 1 minute remaining. If you intend to use or begin to use the name, title, position of a staff member, or any personal or other information with respect to another person, including a member of the board or committee, or a pupil or their parent or guardian, I will rule that you must address the committee of the whole in an in-camera session. Delegates can be critical of board decisions or make submissions with respect to a recommendation or decision. However, I will rule that your delegation is out of order and end the delegation. Either of the following occur. The information in your oral speech is significantly different than the written speech provided, or your speech notes and or other material contain, or if you begin to use language that constitutes an invasion of privacy, breach of confidentiality, defamation of character, or is obscene, or B, discrimination against an individual, or group of individuals based on a protected ground under the Human Rights Code.
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Our online gurus will start the video.
This is a message from Let's Get Together, Tech for All Youth and the world. You've probably arrived at a fork in the road now. In the distance, the sun swells brilliantly despite your indecision. So we're here to clear everything up. First, congratulations on successfully completing the computer anatomy workshop, for being a part of something incredible. We stand with you, the dreamers, the believers, the change makers. Maybe you don't know how far you've come and are tempted to look back. Let me show you. You are someone who decided, I am going to be with the earth. You are someone who chose to say yes to bridge the digital divide. You are someone who cares about the children of the future, whose fates depend on the actions we take now. You are someone who said that a barren electronic wasteland is not what you want to see when you glance up at the sky or down to the ground. You are someone who decided that indifference is not a beginning, it is an end. You've decided to leave a legacy that is always striving for better things. You are someone who has made a promise of hope, that despite the frustration, anger, despite knowing someone who doesn't have any technology to make their way, you have paved a new path, a path they can take. Whether it's speaking out on social media, making STEM for all a reality, teaching in schools, running workshops, refurbishing technology, or volunteering, you are all true ambassadors. So how will you empower others? How will you make sure that resilience is an everyday miracle? What can you do to show others that there is no more time than the present? We leave your voice with you. To push for change, to break barriers, to be the ones that say yes to technology and quality education for all. Let's get started. Let's get together. Thank you. Start your journey today. Bring your ideas to info@letsgettogether.ca.
Thank you so much, trustees, and for having us this evening. I am really proud and honored to say that that video was created by youth that we worked with this summer, and one of your students, Ishrat here, is the voice you heard. Hated that spoken word. So we are here to talk about choice and an option to protect our planet, to give youth a voice, and to make sure that tech equity is a reality, not just talked about. So my name's Allison. I'm from a nonprofit organization, the executive director. Let's Get Together, and our goal is to make learning equitable and education. The reality is, it isn't happening. And our main focus right now is to make sure we collect e-waste and computers and refurbished computers to get ownership at no cost. We'll go to our presentation. So we have 4 components. Well, there's many components to our present story. First one, I'm going to the tech collect.
Yeah, so just a little bit about our tech collects. So far, we've started as like a process, and it started as like a whole system. And we made sure that every step of the way, youth were involved. And that's really about empowering youth and allowing them to empower others. So by hosting these tech collects, not only are we reducing e-waste and saving the environment, essentially, we are also giving youth the power to create change in their own community.
The next one is called Tech and Me. And that's where we get and those who need that.
Next step in our story is Tech for All Youth, and this is a huge component because practically every part of our journey has been reliant on youth. And so that's why a lot of the sessions that we've held, including Tech Collects, including sessions that allow everyone to empower people in their community, have always been led by youth. And I think that's a really powerful thing to take into account because this is a place where we can implement this in schools as well as partnerships with nonprofit organizations like Let's Get Together. I think for the school board, this is something that should really be considered.
Well, you can continue for a few more seconds, but yes.
Okay, thanks. Well, the final part. Isn't it about one organization, thank you, or one person or community? Mobilizing communities and empowering them of the problem that exists, but also being part of the solution. So our presentation shows some impact stories. What we are here to talk about at and right now, we've just delegated the field districts. We are working with the Brampton Library. We have tech collects for the last 2 years. The City of Brampton has asked work with me Sheridan College and the University of Toronto, Mississauga, knowing that education is central to what we want to do.
Thank you.
So the last part is for Ishrat to summarize, and this is her act.
So just really quickly in summary, I asked that the Dufferin-Peel Catholic District School Board consider implementing all of this and kind of voicing the Tech for All initiative to schools, because making schools aware of this issue and problem makes sure that everyone in the schools themselves can become inspired to take action and be empowered by their own actions in their community.
Thank you. Any questions? None. Thank you very much, ladies. Greatly appreciate it.
May I please ask what are next steps or what
Staff?
happens with once we have delegation?
You had the opportunity. Go ahead.
Ask the question as posed by the delegate.
Seems like the start of the song. You mind?
Oh, staying.
No longer the CIO. Obviously, may not be employed here much longer. So,
Thank you very much for delegation to staff. Easy to ask the question that the delegate asked. What's the next steps?
so through the chair, I would suggest that, similar to the appeal board, we would meet with the delegates and explore more about this and understand more about it, and we can report back to the trustees.
Thank you very much. And again, thank you very much for delegation.
Thank you. Daniel?
Sorry, through the chair, the entire presentation is included in the agenda package, just for reference, page 13 through 26. We move on to item E1A, which is reports from trustees for receipt. E1A is Ontario Catholic School Trustee Association reports.
Luz, is that you or
Yes, I'm here.
what are you doing?
No, I just have a quick reminder for everyone, if that's okay.
Yep.
Just a quick reminder, the registration for the AGM of Oxta is now again been sent. So please consider signing up and joining the Oxta AGM in April. And again, we've been sending all of the reminders from Oxta. So please do consider. Thank you. That's it, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Luz. Anybody have any good news stories? Hearing none, seeing none. Daniel, next order of business.
Thank you. Through the chair, we move on to item F, which are reports from committees or administration for receipt. F1 is the interim financial reports for the 4 months ending December 31st, 2023. And I invite Executive Superintendent Chair Paca to present the report.
Julie?
Thank you. Through the chair, tonight I am presenting the first interim financial report for the 2023-2024 year for the 4-month period, September 1st to December 31st. This report starts on page 27 of your agenda. The report is a consistent format with prior period reporting. Note that this is measuring actuals against our budget, and that budget is based on the revised estimates information that was shared in December. At that time, the revised estimates was reporting a 36.5 million deficit, impacted quite heavily by the long-term disability plan. The report is presented with highlights in 3 different areas, including financial, enrollment, and staffing, and I will highlight some key areas in each. Financial information for this time of year, a target of spend would be about 33.3%. Actual operating expenses currently stand at 29.2%. But if you exclude amounts booked at year end, the spend is closer to 32%, which is pretty much on target. I draw your attention to page 29, where there is detailed information. You'll note that some categories of spend are a little ahead of target, like textbooks, classroom and school office resources. This is more and more of a trend. We continue to tell schools and departments to be conscious of supply chain challenges and to procure things early. That's good for planning for schools, make sure they have enough resources on hand and then time to monitor the budget for the rest of the year. On page 30, there is a summary provided that actually shows the 3 different components of financial, a summary of enrollment, and a summary of staffing. In the enrollment section in the middle, this shows the change from original estimates reported back in June to revised estimates reported in December. This is an in-year change in enrollment only. It is not a year-over-year number. The reported decline is 36 ADE overall. So you can see, although the in-year is small, we do continue to experience a decline. It's larger when you compare year over year. The next section would be staffing, and staffing shows, again, the changes between original estimates and revised. And it really ties to staffing needs that result from enrollment changes or any carryover of unspent funds related to special initiatives from year end that require those funds to be rolled forward. In conclusion, the expenditures are progressing well against budgeted targets. Finance will continue to monitor these expenses against budget and will report again at the next 4-month period, which is the end of April 2024. And that concludes my report this evening.
Thank you, Julie. Any questions? Hearing none? Oh, Daryl, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And through you, on page 30, we are seeing a 10% decrease in classroom expenses compared to last year.
So through the chair, yes, for different reasons. Obviously, the budget is different and salaries are different as a result of different grant initiatives. So the spend in that area doesn't necessarily align with the spend that was in place in the prior year. So it really is aligned to the types of grants we're seeing. For example, last year we would have had the Learning Recovery Fund, which was significantly more positions and salaries, and then we're not seeing that this year.
Then the spend should have gone up.
No, through the chair, sorry, just a second, I'm just going to pull up the page here in front of me. So through the chair, the spend would go down because we have gone down in a significant number of positions. So your spend is not going to be the same level as the prior year. When you remove a grant like the LRF, that's well over 100 FTE positions, then they're not there in your spend comparison.
Would that be the only reason? And the grant was around what, 22 million?
So through the chair, you have to remember you're comparing year over year, and there's lots of changes in
Number
each
of
year.
staff have not increased or decreased significantly. The
Right.
comparisons don't look at the first chart, then you look at the third chart in your staffing. Doesn't complement each other. One's giving us one story, the other is giving us a totally different story.
Through the chair, couple of different things. The first section of that chart on page 30 is looking at your budget to actuals, basically, for this year and last year, which can be very different depending on the types of grants and the funding that was coming through each year. The last side on the far right is really just looking at the staffing that's changed between original budget and revised budget. So that's in-year staffing. That's not a comparison of year over year. Whereas the first section of this report is a year over year comparison. So those two won't connect if you're trying to look at trends from both of those sections. The trend really that's being shown is, just kind of to show you the differences of what's happening year over year. The budget is different year over year, and the expenses can be different year over year. They are tracking similar in percentage. We're at 70%, 70.8% available compared to 69.9% available. So when you look at the totality, it's on similar track.
We can probably look at it in a different manner. I mean, you present it the next quarter or the next 4 months. You're looking at revised estimates versus actuals, which you revise your estimates and then fine, but that got nothing. I mean, that shouldn't be compared with actuals when you're sharing it with the board, because at the end of the day, we need to see a comparison probably by previous year or with previous quarter or something which is comparable. Because revised estimates, if you went wrong in your revised estimates, and there's something seriously wrong with the entire board. Because you're revising your estimates and then your actuals go totally haywire, there's a problem. We rather see comparisons which are more realistic than revised estimates versus actual.
So through the chair, and I, I get, and it might be just the wording, this section really is actuals to budget. The budget, we're actually using the budget that was revised because it's more up to date and more realistic of what the expected budget is for the year. So that really is our actuals compared to our budget at 4 months of the year.
Probably remove the word revised. Because to me, it's like we revise the budget, then we are comparing as to how we performing versus the revised. Logically, you should perform
Hang
on target. Yeah.
Yes, yes. And
But then
that's,
is that something we want to see? What was revised? Or probably like the next chart where you're showing us the comparison to same period last year. Would that be more reflective of how we are performing as a board?
so through the chair, yes, and I would say on page 30, you can see that we're on target similar to we were last year. And that would be the percentage of budget remaining number you're seeing, where it's 70.8 compared to 69.9. So really we're on track similar to the prior year. That's what that's saying. The page 29 is where you get more detail, and that's our actual expenditures compared to our budget, which is our revised budget. So what I can do is take it back and see if I can make sure it's clear for the next reporting period.
Thank you, Daryl.
Thank you, Mr.
Daryl? Any other questions? Next order of business, Daniel?
Thank you. And through the chair, we move on to item F2, which is the October 31st, 2023 enrollment report. And I invite Superintendent Thomas to present the report.
Thank you. Good evening. Through the chair, I'm going to actually invite Manager of Planning Stephanie Cox to present this evening's report.
Stephanie?
Thank you. Good evening, and through the chair. The report that you have before you, starting on page 31 of the agenda, is in regards to the annual collection of student enrollment data as of October 31st, 2023, as required by the Ministry of Education. As noted in the report, the Dufferin-Peel Catholic District School Board reported a total of 71,442 students. That's 41,446 elementary and 29,996 secondary students. This is a decrease of 1,100 elementary students and an increase of 117 secondary students from October 2022. The overall board decline from one year to the next was 983 total students. The enrollment report attached as Appendix 1 on page 32 of the agenda does break down enrollments by school and by grade at both the elementary and secondary panels. The difference in enrollment for each school between October 2022 and October 23 is also identified in the last column on the page. The report notes that there was a total of 236 remote students between the elementary and secondary panels. We had 115 elementary students and 121 secondary students enrolled in remote learning. Planning staff anticipates bringing forward the long-term enrollment projections at a future meeting of the Administration and Finance Committee. This concludes the presentation of the report, and I'm happy to take any questions trustees may have.
Any questions? Hearing none, seeing none. Daniel, next order of business.
Thank you. And through the chair, we move on to item F3, which is the Student Transportation Update and Service Delivery Report. And I invite Superintendent Thomas and General Manager Gentile, who's joining us virtually this evening, to present the report.
Good evening. Through the chair, beginning on page number 42. Is this evening's Student Transportation Update and Service Delivery Report. Trustees will note that the information contained in the report is similar to what's been shared in terms of content from previous iterations of the report. And with that, I'm going to ask General Manager Anna Gentile to provide updates, highlights from this evening's report.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh,
Yes.
okay, perfect. Thank you. Sorry, I was having trouble with my mic, but I see it's fine. Thank you. Thank you. And through you, Mr. Chair, before you is a student transportation update and service delivery report. So beginning with the driver update, at this time, the bus operators for both Stop R and STWDSTS are reporting that they have enough drivers to service all of our routes. And as always, both consortiums continue to monitor bus service daily to ensure that any potential issues are identified and resolved quickly. Next is an update on the Chipmunk School Bus Tracking App. So the pilot testing of the Chipmunk School Bus Tracking App is moving along. Our team recently invited 18 additional schools to the pilot in the months of January and February. With these additional schools, there are now a total of 37 schools in the Dufferin-Peel Catholic District School Board who are pilot testing the Chipmunk School Bus Tracking App. Last month, StopR also created an online survey to collect user feedback from parents and guardians. The survey was distributed to pilot schools in the middle of January, and StopR staff are now collecting and reviewing responses. The next update is on the monthly tracking of school bus delays. StopR has provided graphs showing the number of delays per week in the months of November and December of 2023, as well as January 2024. StopR has also listed the top 3 schools in the Dufferin-Peel Catholic District School Board that had the most delays in those months. In the report, you will see a brief summary of the reasons for those delays and the actions taken by StopR staff to improve service delivery. This concludes the Student Transportation Update Service Delivery Report, and happy to take any questions.
Any questions? Mario?
Mr. Chairman, one question. You said there was a survey taken?
Yes.
It's being taken. Are we taking those surveys with the schools that are most affected by delays? They're part of the mix on their own? Are they segregated on their own? Or how we handle that specifically?
Sir, yes, thank you. And through you. So the survey is actually for the Chipmunk School Bus Tracking app. So it is, it was sent to all the pilot schools only.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chair, I have a
Seeing none
question.
here. Go ahead, Nathan.
Thank you, and through you. For the pilot schools, are the ones that are selected based off of the delayed times, or how are they selected?
It varies. We originally started selecting schools with a little bit more busing than other schools. Then we kind of looked at some of the delays, some of them with higher delays. It just depends. It varies all over the place.
Okay, and just one more question, Mr. Chair. That's okay. When do we expect for all schools to have access to the Chipmunk app?
Yes, okay, so that's a great question. So right now, what our next plan is that we are going to, there's going to be a comprehensive evaluation of the entire pilot project, including the app's performance, the results of the parent app, the school feedback, and everything. Everything will be conducted in the next coming weeks to determine the next steps for the eventual implementation. Does that answer your question or not?
Yeah, I have one more question. I'm so sorry, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, no worries.
Through you, and once again, I understand that our busing system goes through 2 different types of providers, so StopR and STWDSTS. So
Yes.
would the Chipmunk app provide it to both bus operators or just StopR?
So at this current time, it's only for the Peel schools. So it's only for StopR schools. There are three schools in STWS, the 3 schools in Orangeville, and those schools are not included at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions? Just a clarification. When Anna said in Peel schools, Did she mean Dufferin Peel schools?
Through the chair, she meant the Dufferin Peel
Yes.
schools that
Okay.
are located in the region of Peel.
Yeah, okay. I just wanted to, I wanted to be clear. Thank you. Seeing no questions, Daniel, next order of business.
Thank you. And through the chair, we move on to item F4, which are the Stop Our Governance Committee meeting minutes from September 27th, 2023. And if there are any questions regarding the minutes, Superintendent Thomas and General Manager Gentile are here to address those questions.
Any questions? Hearing none, seeing none. Next order of business.
Through the chair, we move on to item G1, which are reports from committee and administration requiring action. And G1 is the 2024-25 budget development process. And I invite Executive Superintendent Sherapaka to present the report.
Thank you. Through the chair, this evening, we bring forward the plan for the 24-25 budget development process. The announcement of grants this year is expected to align with the normal timeframe, which is end of March, early April. That is what the sector is indicating through meetings we've had with ministry staff at this point of the year. However, it's noted that budget planning has already started at Dufferin Peel. Board Policy 8.50 guides our development process and opportunities for engagement. I draw your attention to page 60 of the agenda. This chart includes some key dates that I'll just highlight now for trustees. On April 9th, we will hold a budget information session for trustees. This will take place before the Administration and Finance Committee meeting on the same night. On April 24th, we will have the live public budget webcast. This date will be communicated to all school administrators for the opportunity to coordinate Catholic School Council meetings on the same night, should it work for them. The remainder of the chart indicates approximate timeframes for other meetings and reports, as well as the final June deadline. Additional communication strategies related to the budget development process include opening a budget web page on the main Dufferin Peel website. This is where we would post all reports, ministry information, and presentations. Communicating opportunities for stakeholders to delegate at committee meetings or regular board meetings. Distributing information through school newsletters, websites, and school messenger. And using social media for relaying information about budget and budget sessions. And as noted, we will host the public budget webcast. The budget development process at Dufferin Peel is complicated and has been for a couple of years, knowing that we start with an accumulated deficit position, an expected in-year deficit, and that we operate under a multi-year financial recovery plan with the ministry. That aside, we still want to ensure we communicate with all our stakeholders and ensure we're sharing financial information and providing an opportunity for feedback. That's the report this evening, and happy to take questions.
Any questions? Hearing none, seeing none. Motion that the Administration and Finance Committee recommend the Board of Trustees approve the proposed 2025 budget development process, moved by Trustee Darrell D'Souza. Any opposed? All in favor? Carried. Daniel?
Thank you. Through the chair, we move on to item G2, which is the 2024-25 modified school year calendar. And I invite Superintendent Peel to present the report.
Evening, through the chair. My pleasure to bring you this evening the annual school year calendar report, which begins on page 61 of your agenda package. Trustees will notice a slight change if you're looking on page 61 this year, in that the calendar is referred to the 2024-2025 modified school year calendar, which I will address. If you would please turn to page 63 in your agenda package, which is our proposed calendar for next school year. Trustees will notice we have identified Thursday, August 29th as a professional activity day for teachers. This occurs before Labor Day, which makes this a modified school year calendar, hence the title of this report. The purpose of the August 29th Professional Activity Day is to allow principals in their schools to cover some of our statutory and regulatory requirements such as health and safety, new staff orientation, violence prevention in school matters that can be addressed before students enter the building. Trustees will notice further down the page, actually, I apologize, it's actually at the top of the page, the third line, identifies because we start the school year officially on August 29th, the last instructional day for elementary and secondary schools becomes Thursday, June 26th, which allows time at the end of the year for administrative and clerical tasks to be completed before the end of June. Pleased to tell you that working with our largest coterminous board across the street, the calendar presented to trustees this evening represents an alignment of 6 of the 7 elementary school professional activity days and 7 of 7 secondary school professional activity days. Trustees will know this is a goal we try to reach every year to achieve financial efficiencies in terms of our shared busing costs with our coterminous board. That concludes my presentation this evening. Happy to take any questions.
Questions? Mario?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, specifically not to this report, but it is about this topic. Director, if I may, I'm Director, I believe when Peel, I just want to confirm to put it into the minutes, when Peel is doing an election in June, I think it is, we in fact are having that day. Well, you could share what we're doing that day.
Through the chair, I believe you're asking about the election for the mayor of Mississauga.
And possible councillor as well.
So through the chair, that election day that has been identified is a professional development day for our elementary schools. And we will work with the city to ensure, once they've identified whether or not our secondary schools are polling stations, what kind of measures need to be put in place.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you for your indulgence, Mr. Chairman. I realize it's not focused on. It's a topic that we're concerned ourselves with. Thank you.
Thank you, Mario. Any other questions? Luz?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to clarify, the PA day that we match with our coterminous board, you mentioned 6 out of 7. What would have been the difference that we're not matching with them?
Thank you for the question. Through the chair, trustees will be aware that in Dufferin Peel, we do our elementary reorganization of classes typically the second Monday of school. The Peel board, being much larger, cannot meet the same deadline that we meet. Their reorganization date is much later in the month. Trustees may recall once upon a time we tried that in Dufferin Peel without great results. So that is the one day in the elementary calendar every year that we do not align.
Okay, I think we are keeping it that way because we had a very good response from our community, from the parents that they prepared that compared to waiting towards the end of the month. So I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Luz. Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, I just have one.
Go ahead, Priya.
Thank you, and through the chair. Just regarding, I see we've got most of the elementary and secondary PA days are aligned, and I know we have a lot of families that have students in both panels. Just the one, and I probably know the answer, but I'm going to ask it anyways. The elementary school PA day for St. Sophia, that's January 20th. Is there any way that can be aligned with the secondary one on January 30th?
So thank you for the question. Through the chair, we align all of our provincial priorities days across panels, specifically as the trustee has referenced, because we know we have parents who rely on older children to keep an eye on younger children on those days. Unfortunately, the remaining days, one of which Trustee Corbett is referring to being Monday, January 20th, are days identified in the collective agreement for teacher activities that have to align with the beginning and the end of the terms. So, for example, in elementary, Monday, January 20th is basically report card writing day. That's the assessment and evaluation of pupil progress, which in an elementary school has to occur before the end of the term. Whereas the January date in secondary school is principal turnaround day after exams, which has to happen at the end of the term. So we realize it's not ideal for families. Unfortunately, those days are tied to collective agreement and tied to timelines in the, I was going to say school year, which is ironic because this is the school year calendar, but Trustee Corbett knows what I mean. So unfortunately, no, it's not easy, it's not possible for us to align those days.
Thank you, through the chair. I figured that was the reason, but just wanted to get clarification. So I appreciate the explanation. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all
Bria.
my questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions? Hearing none, seeing none. Motion on page 62 that the Administration and Finance Committee recommend to the Board of Trustees that the 2024-2025 modified school year calendar be approved for submission to the Ministry of Education. Moved by Trustee Del Rosario. All in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Through the chair, we move on to we have no additional business. We move on to item I, which is questions asked by trustees.
Questions? Ariel?
I have a number of questions to ask. I'll go through a couple and then just stop. And if there's anybody else wants to interject at that time, and then pick up from there. I may, Mr. Chairman? Thank you. Through you to staff. I've had some schools call me regarding the possibility of shortage of Chromebooks in the school for Chromebooks. But what is the best approach someone would do in terms of addressing their specific needs? I'll mention the school specifically on the staff. So what would be the best way of dealing with this particular issue?
Through you to the chair, if maybe we could connect offline tomorrow or the day after to understand which schools are having challenges, and then I can do some further investigation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. May I ask a further question to that effect? In terms of what is the process right now, so that's at least in public knowledge? Not specific to a school, but what's the procedure?
Through the chair, right now, the ICT department was able to provide all the schools with how many devices they have and how many of those are end of life. And through their own internal budget processes at the school level, schools should be making provisions. Now, what I will say is, and as we're all aware, there was an influx of Chromebooks throughout COVID, and the ministry was able to fund the acquisition of Chromebooks, but there was never any funding at the back end of that to replace those Chromebooks. So what we may be looking at is a situation where there was an influx due to COVID and remote learning, and now I believe it's right across all school boards. Yeah. They're trying now to reconcile how we're going to refresh these at that same level or what that level should be. So one of the things the IC team is doing, and we hope to bring that up to trustees at a future meeting, is identify what a system-wide renewal strategy for Chromebooks and technology would be.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Associate Director. Regarding, if I may, Mr. Chairman, through you to the director, we had a brief conversation. I'm sorry I didn't bring this up earlier, Madam Director, in case you may or may not know the answer to this. I would think you do because you're on top of everything that happens here. Regarding statues for elementary schools and the proximity of when someone goes into a school, the image of our faith at the school. What are we doing with that, Madam Director? Are we moving forward on that, or what's happening?
Through the chair, at the last director's webcast, I impressed upon the entire leadership team of the importance of ensuring both reverence and prominence of symbols of our faith when you walk into school.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Madam Director. One last question, then I'll take a bit of a break, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Regarding the letter that was sent out to the city, there was an issue to be dealt with at one of our local schools in Ward 3. What is the status of that particular item right now? I wouldn't expect to have an answer right now because I know this thing is very fluid. So I guess it goes to Matthew, but you, Mr. Director, Mr. Chairman, how would I handle this particular call, these kind of questions?
Through the chair, the city of Mississauga did provide notice to the Dufferin Peel Catholic District School Board that an appeal had been filed with respect to the decision that the Committee of Adjustment of the city took back in December of 2023. Further to that, at this time, Dufferin Peel has not received any additional information about the status of that appeal. And I don't believe that we've received any specifics about when or where at this time.
You, Mr. Chairman, I believe that they have included us in future mailings by the looks of it. Is that true?
Through the chair, I believe that is the case. I know that we have been receiving updates through the director's office from the city on this topic.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sorry, Matthew. Wait until.
Daryl, then Luz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you. My question is, where busing is concerned, we end up, I mean, we were spending a little more than Peel. The coterminous board was spending, where busing was given to our children during exams. They did not give busing to their kids.
Through the chair, just to clarify, I believe you're speaking about midday exam busing, which is
Correct.
one thing that we offered that the coterminous board did not offer.
From a cost perspective, we were spending significant amount of money, which our coterminous board were not spending.
Through the chair, that's correct.
Are there any such expenses that we have where we are different from our coterminous board?
Through the chair, or just with regards to transportation
No,
or any of the
transportation is one.
services or?
Since this is the ANF meeting, I want to put this question on the table because I was not aware of it. I don't know if my trustees were aware of it.
So through the chair, for the most part, because all school boards are funded very similarly through the GSN, the majority of expenditures are going to align in some way or other. Where you would see significant differences, the one that I would think of up front that would be very noticeable is that we are a Catholic school board and Peel isn't. So we have expenditures to ensure we have our courses for religion, our resources, our statues and symbols. We have our faith development staff, and we have support staff in our schools that are of religion experts. So that is one area that we would spend differently than Peel. And then there are going to be minor differences in different things that we do, number of staff in one area compared to another. But for the most part, most boards should align in the type of expenditures they have.
Yeah, I mean, as a board, if we are publicly funded, we have to balance our budgets. Otherwise,
Correct.
It's not being managed well. No doubt about that. This to me was pretty glaring when I figured out, I said, like, why are we giving transportation when the coterminous is not? It makes sense to me because what justification do we have?
Through the chair, what I will say, there's a number of kind of legacy items that the board, when we were in a financially different position, they put into place. I mean, we have some rural school boards that have a large area that they need to cover, and noontime busing made sense at that time. What I will say is we do meet with our peers at the coterminous board. So their associate director, the superintendent of finance, HR, ICT, we meet on a regular basis. And we do go through, and they ask us the same thing. How are you managing, property acquisition, or how are you managing facility maintenance, and how many supervisors do you have, and how many ICT techs, and how are you delivering that service? Because all boards are similar in that funding is becoming a challenge for all of them, and we're trying to make the best use of funds. So any of the best practices between the two of us, and then that extends beyond through our OASBO committees to all school boards across the province. So when we catch the anomalies or the legacy items, we try to rectify them. And you'll see the same thing, for example, when we did permits. So at one time, the permits, how we classified permits, what we charge for permits were out of whack. And now that's updated on an annual basis, and they're in line, or they will be in line with each other very shortly.
Can we possibly just look at expenses that we have and probably take a month, 2 months, 90 days. See if there's something that we are spending and our co-terminus board is not spending, just to figure out if there are any opportunities. Because yes, legacy items can continue to stay legacy, but if it's identified at the right time, there can be opportunities.
Through the chair, I would say we do that on continual basis, especially these many years, but we had a very significant review of expenditures when we dealt with our investigation last summer. But we continue to do that. Like Associate Director mentioned, we meet regularly with many boards across the province to discuss expenditures and processes and how things are done at any school board. One of the other things we've been doing this year is some benchmarking analysis. So we've done some through RIAT. They're still finishing one of those engagements, and we've done some of our own internal benchmarking. So that is along the lines of what you're indicating. Let's compare ourselves to other boards and what expenditures do we have that they don't, or that they have and we don't. So it's an ongoing process. We'll continue
But if something can be shared with trustees, that would be helpful, because this one stood out to me when I looked at it. For us, it was fine legacy, we used to do it, and then it was pointed out to us that you need to cut this. We had to do it.
And through the chair, I think we can work together with the rest of the corporate departments to bring some report that identifies either the benchmarking or where we're in alignment or not in alignment with school boards surrounding us.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Daryl. Luz, Stefano, then Mariel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through the chair to Superintendent, Executive Superintendent Chair Paca, I just want to find out, I should have probably asked this during your presentation. We changed our funding arrangement for LTD early this year or late last year. And we're projecting an LTD cost of about 28.5 million. Can you give us an idea of what that 28.5 million is causing it now? Because previously, as we all know, as we found out later in the year, every year before, when we were doing LTD costs, we were given a certain amount. Then at the end of the year, all of a sudden it balloons to 58 million or 60 million, but because it was due to our funding arrangement, where we were paying dollar for every LTD benefit we have to pay. So now that we have changed that funding arrangement, could you give us an idea what this 28.5 million consists, and what do we expect at the end of our year? Are we going to have another, I'm assuming, based on the change of the funding arrangement, that surprise number will not happen anymore?
So through the chair, you are correct. One of the changes we made with the LTD plan was to move to an insured model away from the refund accounting model. So the $28 million price tag is representative of the risk associated with our group, large group of employees. And that's the cost assessed to us for our ongoing annual premium. So the cost will not change. So that's the one thing with your insured model. That's the cost we are locked in to pay on an annual basis. It will not change. It will not go up at the end of the year. It will not change mid-year. That is our annual cost until such time as we need to renegotiate or go to competitive market again, if we decide to do that. So that's the difference from the refund accounting, where, I mean, was unique during the times, but during those pre-COVID years where we saw the spike go up because the number of individuals going into the plan increased rapidly. And we had an obligation to pay into the plan for those members. What we've experienced in the last couple of years, even though we are no longer with that previous provider, was a refund at the end of the last couple of years, recognizing that individuals came out of the plan sooner than was expected. And that's what we had experienced for a long number of years prior to what happened at COVID. But yes, we are on the insured model, and that is an annual cost that won't change.
Okay, so just to clarify, this 28.5 million is the annual cost already. Am I correct? It will not change
Chair,
anything.
that is correct, and that is our annual cost going forward.
Okay, thank you. I just want to clarify that. So every month or whenever you give us an update, that 28.5 million is it. It will not change. Correct?
Correct,
Okay,
through the chair, that is an annual cost until such time as it says as we have to renegotiate or change.
right. So I think we have a guarantee, right? When we went into this, did we not have a guarantee that our premium will remain for at least 2 years or 3 years when we renegotiated this plan?
Yes, through the chair, the cost should not change for the first 3 years.
Wonderful.
I don't have it in front of me, but I think it's the first 3 years.
Yeah. Okay, that's what I just wanted to make sure, because normally when you renew or when you renegotiate, they'll give you a guarantee of at least 3 years. So that's wonderful to hear. At least for 3 years, our premium rate that we're paying for LTD is fixed. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Julie.
Thank you, Luz. Stefano, Ria, and then Mario.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, Associate Director Daniel. Just wanted to make sure that, I remember asking this back before Christmas regarding the signage at all our schools. And I remember you mentioned that things would be happening over the Christmas break. Just want to see if everything's been taken care of at all our schools and we're all at the same level.
Through the chair, and I'll ask General Manager Mariah or Superintendent Thomas, but notification went out to all the principals that this was going to be undertaken, so it was no shock to anybody. And I believe they've been working through them all, but.
Through the chair, I can just confirm, as Associate Director Del Bianco has mentioned, communication did go out from General Manager Mariah's office to all administrators to inform them that maintenance staff would be going out to update the signage as required.
And where are we in the process? No? Obviously, lots of schools. I understand you don't have the exact number, but are we halfway done? Quarters done? Are we done? Thank you. And apologies for not giving the question before. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Ria?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I didn't have a question.
Oh, my apologies. I thought I saw your hand. Mario, go
That's
ahead.
okay.
Mr. Chairman, regarding St. Alfred's, recently was at a school council meeting there, and there was a concern regarding the school and its age and what have you, and we've done an incredible job moving forward. A few years ago, it was one of the schools that was recommended by Dufferin Peel to the ministry for additional monies. And unfortunately, they said no, and that's the way we go, and so be it. But the fact of the matter is, should we just stop there? The question I have to ask is this, to you, Mr. Chairman, to the superintendent, can we get a copy of the document that was forwarded to the ministry? May I get a copy of one of those submitted to the ministry, which is filled out by our staff, the current one, and I want to know where we sit on that. And because where I'm going with this, I want to know if there's any other opportunities to gain additional monies on a per school basis. Does anybody have to go after it? Does it have to be addressed or somehow sort of shake the tree and some money will come down, so to speak? But the fact of the matter is that I want to make sure that St. Alfred's School is the best school possible with the current funds, recognizing what we did to it in terms of putting it forward a number of years ago. Anyway, with that, through you, Mr. Chairman, the question is, can I get the formal original document and then the current document that was sent to the ministry, if in fact the document was sent to the ministry, the regulations that require?
Thank you for the question. Through the chair, approximately every 12 to 18 months, the Ministry of Education puts out a call to school boards to request school boards submit requests for major capital funding through the Capital Priorities Program. A few years ago, Dufferin Peel did put in a request for a replacement school for St. Alfred, and at the time, the ministry denied the request. The planning team, along with input from our facilities department as well, continually reviews the status of all of our schools. And we have to follow and abide by the Ministry of Education's guidelines for the types of projects that are eligible for capital priorities funding from the Ministry of Education. And what I can do for Trustee Piscucci is to provide that information about what was submitted to the ministry, as well as the evaluation criteria from the Board of Trustees, as the board does have the final approval on submissions that go to the ministry, and then also information about the latest submission.
So through the chair, just to add on to that and just to clarify, just to highlight the point, the criteria by which we submit capital projects may change from the request from the ministry from an 18-month period. So what was considered a bona fide capital priority 12 months ago, based on whatever the new criteria is today, may not justify that school being part of that submission now. Because if they want to look more at surrounding schools or enrollment at surrounding schools, which is more of a criteria now, wasn't as much a criteria then, that we have to adjust and adapt what we submit based on what the current criteria is for capital priorities.
Associate Director, thank you very much. I expected the changes, et cetera, the changes within the ministry as well, but thank you. That's great. If you can, that'd be great if I can get that information. Another question, if I may, Mr. Chairman, is it who would I go to try to get a scattergram of where certain students come from, visit a particular school? Would be the department on that one.
So through the chair, that request can come through me. It'll go to the planning department.
And what I'll do, Mr. Chairman, I'll contact with Matthew. I think that is all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions? Hearing none, seeing none, I want to pass the chair to Mario for 2 questions, if I could.
Yes, thank you.
You, Mr. Chairman, to staff. If I could, Mario, just on the school that St. Alfred, not that I have anything to do with it, but the staff have a letter that came back to say this was not part of, just, I'm thinking that Trustee Piscucci is looking for some information to say to them, this is what we did, this is where it was, and this is what came back to us to defend Dufferin Peel. I mean, I would ask for the same thing like myself, but just from a show, here's where and what happened. Is that something that we have?
So through the chair, the ministry always provides us with a response to the projects that have been submitted for consideration to them under the Capital Priorities Program. When they decline or deny requests, they usually provide a little bit of information, not always an extensive amount, but basically it's enough to, sort of read between the lines. For example, in the past, as Associate Director Del Bianco referred to, the criteria have changed somewhat from intake to intake, and there was a time when a 1-for-1 replacement just wouldn't have been even considered. The ministry would have said basically, unless the school is prohibitive to repair, it is in such a poor state of repair that it is no longer potentially safe to operate, they wouldn't even consider such a business case for funding approval. They basically would say to a board, use your school renewal money, that's what it's intended for instead. But things have evolved in that respect, and they are starting to be a little bit more open to those kinds of submissions. So that's one example. However, absolutely, we can provide that the response letter from the ministry that does provide the information it did share with us.
Again, I don't want to step on, I think I would ask for that because it would show my community the actual steps that we took as a board, 11 trustees, right? Took as a board to say, this is where we put it on our priorities. It could be any school, and that's why I raise it, but it came back as this, and here's the letter that said, or the information that we got, and this is all that we got. Here you go, right? So that's appreciative. Thank you. The comment or the question that Trustee D'Souza had regarding the funds that we saved for midday transportation for secondary schools during exam. Does staff know an approximate number of what that savings was? I remember reading that we were going to do it. I don't know if I was dreaming it or if I remember having this conversation in this realm. That I don't remember. But if staff doesn't have that number, if they could put it in issues and events, that would be most graciously appreciated.
Through the chair, that's exactly what we will do.
Perfect. The last question I have is, Trustee Del Rosario stated and staff confirmed that our LTD annual bill is 28.5 million. What is it cumulatively today? Is it still 28.5? Because we had a debt of 94 million, 94.4, $94 million. Is that still outstanding?
Through the chair, the annual cost for the LTD plan for this fiscal year, 23-24, will be $28.5 million. We have an accumulated deficit as a school board of about $60 million, and that's from a number of deficits over the past few years. Our in-year deficit, which includes the LTD cost, is expected to be about 36.5 million for this fiscal year. If that comes to fruition, as we are saying for revised estimates, then we would add another 36.5 million to that 60 at the end of the year. But the current accumulated deficit is 60 million. Depending on where we end up at the end of August 2024, we will add deficit to that 60 million. That's why it's accumulating.
Okay, so that 94 million is 60.
Correct. Through the chair, that was a number in a previous year. It's
Well, it was
not that
94,
number.
94 went to 60.
Yes, correct.
So $34 million decrease. Well, yeah. Anyway, $34 million difference from the 94 to the 60. But the deficit this year estimated is 36. At the end of this year, if things continue to go as they are, it will be 96.5 million.
Through the chair, that would be correct statement. Yes.
Okay, so have we had any further conversation, or is that more of an in-camera question with regards to accumulation of that LTD? Because it is not like Dufferin Peel did something to accumulate that. Dufferin Peel followed the ministry guidance, because we would have handled it differently, but we have no control over that 60 million, even if it continues to accumulate, well, from 94 to 60, but not without any pain.
Yes, through the chair, discussions are continually ongoing with the ministry. We met recently to discuss, just to make sure they continue to know we are in a difficult spot. So we have met with them recently to discuss cash management and how we manage a deficit with cash flow, the requirements we need from our financial institutions, our banks, and where the ministry could be supporting us and where we need support. And so we have that ongoing dialogue with them. What we are not in a position yet is an actual solution to everything. It's a long process. We know we're in this for the long term, and it just continues to be dialogue along the way at this point. We do not have a final solution. What we are doing is working through some of that letter of direction and investigation report that came to us. And continuing to review and work through some of that in discussion with the ministry as well.
If it took me over 10 years to come up with a solution, it just puts a burr in my saddle to know that I'm not responsible. This board, our staff, is not responsible for the original 94 million. Yet our kids are not getting what everybody else is getting because the ministry, not you, but the ministry can't say, you're right, we didn't do this. And as a result, you are being punished for it. And that's the part that if it was because of our spending, I wouldn't be asking this question. I'd put the tail between my legs and walk away. But we didn't do this. That's the part that I just can't get what they don't see. But they do want to continue to have us give every, they want to squeeze every penny that they can out of this board to decrease that $60 million or 94 to 60. So they've got $34 million from somewhere along the process. I could name where some of it came from, but now they want to squeeze another 60 million because later on, what's going to end up happening once we eliminate that 60, will it accumulate again because of their inability to action the issue that's making Dufferin Peel not provide what other school boards are providing their kids. And I'll go through what the conversation that I had today with Associate Director Del Bianco about the specific schools. Some of the kids did a presentation and they rhymed off 15 public school boards, 15 public schools that had turf field. We had 2. That's not fair. And I'm not just talking about the field, because the field is a field, but it's part of the ministry learning. And so I'm wondering, is there a light at the end of the tunnel or is it just another train? That's my question, Mr. Chairman.
Through the chair, the ministry understands that this is not something that Dufferin Peel is going to solve on its own.
Okay. My question now, Mr. Chairman, is I think we've put a significantly more than a pound of flesh on that scale. What have they put on that scale? Other than maybe provide the scale. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And that's the frustration. Thank you. Moving the camera.
Motion to go in camera.
Motion moved by Daryl. All in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Only been here an hour and a bit, so let's just, if somebody needs, let's finish. Okay. Ariel, close the door.
It through the chair, it just takes a few minutes to go off the live stream. So if we can just have 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Report from in-camera, Eisen report. Approval from the minutes of the in-camera session of the Administration and Finance Committee meeting, the November 7th, 2023. Item number 2, that the A&F Committee approve the recommendations associated with Report A or A and addressed, asked.
Through the chair, that has to be a vote. That's a motion that has to be voted upon in public.
That the A&F, the second one, Marianne?
Yes.
Yes, the second one. Okay, so a vote that was to be taken was the item that we spent time on K4, that the A&F Committee, motion being that the A&F Committee approve the recommendations associated with Report A or A. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carries. We addressed items, questions of an in-camera in nature. Future meeting is Tuesday, April 9th. Move adjournment, moved by Stefano. All in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Good night, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you.
Good night.